Very well, very well. So today's topic is Bhishmadev. But before we get into that, we'll start off with a quick 5-minute kirtan, and then we'll start discussing various glories from the pastimes of Bhishmadev. Namah Vishnu Padha Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pujarine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Ashtadhyadeshakarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe.
Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Ram Sankirtan Ki
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So,
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, very welcome to this program. So we've been doing the characters, various characters from Mahabharata series. We have done Karna, Vidura, and today we're going to talk about Bhishmadev as a very important character. So very welcome, Ram Prabhu, our Rajkumar Prabhu, Shashi Singhal Mataji, and others, which I can't see them. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. So today we'll be discussing the pastimes of and the glories and learning lessons from the life of Bhishmadev. So we just begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Budhirayet.
Okay, so why Bhishmadev? Why is Bhishmadev even relevant as a character to discuss in Mahabharata? First and foremost, Bhishmadev is a great devotee of the Lord, and he is identified as one of the 12 Mahajanas. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Brahnu Prahlada Janaka Bhishma Balir Vayasakim Vayam. So one of these 12 great devotees of the Lord, Bhishmadev is identified as one of the 12 Mahajanas, and there are many interesting points that we can learn from his pastimes. In the Mahabharata, he acts as one of the most important characters who's there from the beginning of the Adi Parva and almost right to the end. And just after his departure, the Pandavas also depart from this world. So he's the backbone of the Mahabharata, and he's one of the most important characters in the whole of the Mahabharata because he's there throughout. And he takes a significant role on constantly, whether it be at the beginning, where he's almost ruling the kingdom and taking care of the affairs, or whether it's in instructing Duryodhan or trying to correct him. And then later on in the war as well, the first 10 days of the war, he is the captain of Duryodhan's army. And so throughout the Mahabharata, he takes a very fundamental and a very key role. And therefore, it's important if we're doing a series on the Mahabharata to at least have some discussion on Bhishmadev. Alongside this, he's one of the very dear devotee of the Lord, and had a very glorious departure in the presence of the Lord himself. So we will also discuss that as well. So One question that often comes up, which if you just keep in the back of your mind, we'll discuss later, is if Bhishmadev is really a great devotee of the Lord, and if he's such a pure devotee, or such a pure soul, then why did he fight against Krishna or against the Pandavas? Why did he fight alongside Adharma or with Duryodhana and the Kauravas? How can someone who's a great devotee do something like that? This question can be brought up, and it's often asked to judge Bhishmadev's true intentions and his true qualities. Before we get into that, we need to take a look at the birth of Bhishmadev and the background behind Bhishmadev's appearance, and this will let us understand in a little more deeper why he carried out the actions he did. So, Mother Ganga there is a great king in the line of Pururava who is called Maharaj Shantanu, and he rules over Bharatvarsha, and in particular his capital is in Hastinapur, modern day New Delhi. And Maharaj Shantanu, he's a very pious king, and he's often described as he used to fight just as Indra. In fighting, no one could tell the difference between him and Indra. And Maharaj Shantanu was a great king, and he once saw Ganga Devi and became enamored by her and wanted to take her hand in marriage. And so Ganga did marry him, but only on the condition that whatever actions she did, he wouldn't judge, he wouldn't question her actions, and he would just go with whatever she said. And so on this promise, or on this condition, Shantanu married Mother Ganga. And in due course of time, I'm obviously going through this a little bit quicker because it's only the background that we need. They had a son, and as soon as the son was born, instead of taking care of him or giving him to the maidservants to take care of, or doing anything else normal, Mother Ganga decided to pick up the child and go to the river Ganges, and drop the child, the newborn baby, into the river. And so Shantanu was completely shocked, taken aback by shock that Ganga Devi would even think of doing such a thing. But because of his condition that he'd promised, he decided not to question it. So although the newborn child was drowned, Shantanu went along with it. And then at the time of the next baby, Ganga immediately went to the river and dropped and drowned the newborn child in the river Ganges. And again, Shantanu was furious, but he couldn't do anything. He couldn't question. And this happened again and again and again. After 7 children, at the time of the 8th child, when Ganga Devi was about to drop the child into the river again, Shantanu said, "No, I can't take this any longer. Why are you doing this?" And she said, "If you want the answer, you have now broken your condition, so I must leave. But to answer your story, I will tell you of an incident that happened in the previous yuga." And so she narrates the story, the background to why she had done this. In the heavenly planets, there were these 8 Vasus, the Ashta Vasus. And once, after seeing that Vashishta Muni had a wonderful Kamadhenu cow, a wish-fulfilling cow, the wife of their main Vasu, Prabhasa or Dew, the wife of this Vasu, encourages him to steal the cow after seeing how wonderful it is, because this cow provides anything that you want. This Kamadhenu cow can provide anything that the person desires, that the owner desires. And so, thinking that he could steal Nandini in this way. Nandini is the name of this Kamadhenu cow. Thinking that he could just simply steal Nandini and please his wife, Prabhasa or Dew takes this Kamadhenu cow away and kidnaps from Vashishta. And Vashishta Muni, by meditation, he realizes that the cow has been kidnapped by Dew and the Ashtavasus, headed by Dew. And so he curses them that they will have to take birth on the earthly planets as humans. And because Dew was the head of this crime, or it was he who was heading, it was because of him that this crime took place, he curses Dew that he will have to live a very long life, whereas the others, because they plead with him, the others won't have to live such a long life and spend such a long time there. And so this is the background, and this eighth Vasu, or the eighth child in the hands of Mulaganga, who is not drowned because Shantanu protests, this eighth child is none other than Dew in that in his next body. And so Mulaganga takes away this child and raises him, and then brings him back, and then he meets again with Maharaj Shantanu, and then he's crowned prince of Bharatvarsha, or at least of Hastinapur at the time. He's crowned prince. And so we'll get on to that, yeah. And so he becomes the prince of the kingdom, and he's told that he will inherit the kingdom from Maharaj Shantanu. And then later on, as Shantanu is hunting in the forests, he sees Satyavati, or he sees a beautiful girl, and he's enamored, and he goes to ask for her hand in marriage. But her father, who is a fisherman, protests, saying that if you marry my daughter, her son will not be king because you've already made Devavrata the king. And so he says that I can't let you marry my daughter because I can't let her live in an inferior manner and not be able to not live like a true queen and not have her offspring take the throne. And so after hearing this, Maharaj Shantanu becomes dejected and he leaves that place. And so then after coming back, and Devavrata, before he's called Bhishma, he's called Devavrata, he asks his father, why do you look so dejected? Why are you so upset? Why are you so depressed? And after hearing the story, he takes this grave oath, this grave vow, that firstly, I will never become king. I will never take the occupation of the king. I will never sit on the throne. And secondly, I will also never get married. I will maintain celibacy for the rest of my life. And this is a terrible vow. This is a great vow. And he promises that I will also support the king I'll support whoever's ruling the kingdom instead of opposing them. And this is a terrible vow. And when the demigods, they hear this vow is taken, they all applaud him and start shouting, Bhishma, Bhishma. Bhishma means the terrible oath or the horrific vow because of how great it is. And if we look historically, many sages have taken such vows. They've gone into the forest, they've renounced themselves, and they've taken such vows. But they're not called Bhishma. They've not been praised so much. And that's because this vow in particular is even greater. Because Bhishmadev, he's not just renouncing material opulences and focusing on his spirituality. Instead, what he's doing is he is renouncing his material opulences while being surrounded by luxury. He's living in a life. He's living surrounded by luxury and enjoyment, but he himself is partaking in none of it. And therefore, Bhishmadev, in that sense, his progress is greater, his vow is greater than the vows taken by other sages of the same caliber. because he decides that he keeps himself surrounded with royalty, whereas the other sages renounce everything and they seem to go to the forest instead. And so this is why Bhishmadev is known as Bhishma, because of this great vow that he's taken. And so this links back again to our original question. If we just keep this in mind, why did Bhishmadev, as being a great devotee that he is, why did he go against the Lord and why did he fight against the Lord? And so the first thing that this question has answered, this story has answered for us, is that one of the vows that Bhishmadev took is that I will not go against the king. I will support whoever's ruling the kingdom. At the time of the Kurukshetra war, the war in Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra was king, and his son Duryodhan was meant to be supported according to Bhishmadev's vow. And therefore, he supports Duryodhan in the war as the head of Duryodhan's army for 10 days and fights against Lord Krishna. So this is the external reason. Firstly, if we look at this seemingly obvious tale, Bhishmadev, a great devotee of the Lord, he's getting cursed, and now he's fighting against the Lord. It's important to understand that this is all external. Actually, this event was arranged in a way that Bhishma or Dev would get cursed so that he could become involved in the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So this is nothing but Krishna's desire. So although externally this is the reason which we see, internally it's important to understand that the desire of the Lord, this happened because of the desire of the Lord. And so it's important to recognize that Bhishmadev is still a true devotee of the Lord, and it's not common for a devotee of the Lord to get cursed. That's true, and that's because this curse is actually meant so that the true intention is that he can engage in the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So, because he's now taken the promise of supporting the kingdom, he can't fight on the side of the Pandavas, because he's already supporting Duryodhana. So this is an external reason, but it's important to recognize as well that Bhishmadev is, in the sense, a counterpart or foil to Karna. Karna supports Duryodhan and fights for him in the war. But according to Vyasadev's Mahabharata, we see Karna is not presented as much of a hero, but rather to the contrary, Vyasadev portrays him in a different manner, as rather being as someone who thinks they're dharmic, but unfortunately falls onto the path of adharma. Bhishmadev's situation is not the same. Although Bhishmadev also fights for the Kauravas, he fights for the Kauravas because that is the desire of the Lord. It's mentioned that the Acharyas explain that the Lord's desire is that Bhishmadev fights on the opposite side. So, whereas Karna is always looking for his social status, I'm not a son of a charioteer, no, I'm actually a true warrior, the opposite is true for Bhishma. He's not looking for this social status. He's thinking, it doesn't matter what other people think of me, because what I want to do is please the Lord, and this is my only desire. And so, when we look at Bhishmadev, the desire of the Lord is that he fights on the opposite side. And so for that reason, he fights on the opposite side, not caring for what other people may think of him for fighting against the Lord. So why did Lord Krishna want Bhishma, a great devotee, to fight on the other side? Why did he want him not? He could have simply supported the Pandavas. In fact, Bhishma was such a great warrior and he was causing the Pandavas tremendous damage throughout the war. So why did Lord Krishna simply not have Bhishmadev fight for the side of the Pandavas? The important point to understand here is Bhishmadev is a great devotee of the Lord. And even though he is a great devotee of the Lord, he fights for the side of adharma. And in that case, he himself does not become victorious. They don't win the war. The Kauravas don't win the war, even though there is a great devotee fighting on their side. Instead, Bhishmadev, on the 10th day, he falls down onto the bed of arrows, and he's immobilized, and he can't do anything after that. And so he's not victorious in battle. So although although one may be the devotee of the Lord, if one supports adharma, if one goes against the Lord's principle, then they will not become victorious. This is important, again, because the concept of dharma is quite tricky. Dharma is not just a rule in a book, but it depends on the circumstances as well. This we already discussed in the Karna lecture. But just to briefly explain it, because Dharma might say war shouldn't happen, war is bad. Dharma will say war is bad because many people die. If we look in this situation, we need to see that Dharma, the war is dharmic because it leads to the removal of all the demoniac kings. So again, in this case, Dharma truly would be, rather than following his own vow, if Bhishmadev supported Lord Krishna, that would be considered Dharma, because whatever the Lord's desire is, that is Dharma. So Lord Krishna demonstrates the principle through his great devotee that if we go against the Lord, we will not be successful. We always must do what the Lord desires. Do what Dharma presents. Dharma is presented as by the Lord. So that's the other secondary principle, which is explained through Bhishmadev fighting on the wrong side of the Kurukshetra warfare. Is there anything I've missed in that? Two reasons are that because he'd taken a promise to support the king, and he'd also is used as a principle by Lord Krishna, so that we can understand that even if the devotee goes against the Lord, if anyone goes against the Lord, they can't become victorious. So these are the 2 points that we need to understand. Okay, so then the next beautiful incident that I'd like to discuss, before we get into that, the other controversy that is often brought up with Bhishma is why he doesn't do anything about Draupadi's disrobing. In the arena at the time, he seems to be quiet. And this is important because the disrobing of Draupadi is quite horrendous. It's completely immoral. And Vidura, who's a great devotee of the Lord, he stood up for it. He went against it outright. In the assembly hall, he straight away shouted at Duryodhana and he told Dhritarashtra, this is immoral completely. You should give back the Pandavas what they deserve. He straight away went against it. He wasn't incited to go against it, but he himself went against it. However, Bhishmadev is a little bit different in this incident, and we'll elaborate on this later again. But Bhishmadev is quiet. Draupadi comes to Bhishma and says, is this dharmic? Did Yudhishthir, when he bet himself, did he lose himself first, or did he lose me first in the gambling match? And Bhishmadev simply ignores this question and remains silent, and instead joins in with Vidura afterwards and says, instead of answering the question outright, he says to Duryodhana that this dice game is not dharmic, this is not how you should do, and you should give it to the Pandavas. So he doesn't actually answer Draupadi's question. And so often people say that, actually, look, he's not a great devotee. He's not been able to answer Draupadi's question. He just stayed silent when he should have actually spoken up. And Bhishmadev explains to Draupadi later, much later after the Mahabharata war, why he couldn't answer the question. And it shows actually the mindset of devotee is not that they look at everything just from an external perspective or touching the surface, but they actually go deeper into understanding. So the sensitivity of understanding is demonstrated here. He says that if I said that Draupadi is independent of Yudhishthir, then Draupadi would lose her relationship. The Pandavas and Draupadi would lose their relationship. Draupadi would leave Yudhishthir, and then that would cause the breaking up of that family completely. And so I couldn't do that. And if I said that Draupadi is dependent on Yudhishthir when she was fairly bet in the dice game after Yudhishthir lost himself, then the Kauravas would treat Draupadi like a slave. So I couldn't say that either. So instead he said, I remained quiet because either way, if I spoke, or if I supported either side, both of them would lead to a bad outcome only. So that's the reason Bhishmadev doesn't answer Draupadi's question. So when Bhishmadev passes away, Bhishmadev falls on the 10th day of the battle after Arjun hides behind Shikandi and shoots these arrows into his body, and this forms a bed of arrows. It's described that there's not even enough space to put 2 fingers on the body of Bhishmadev because that many arrows had pierced his body. And in that seemingly disgusting, bloody, and obviously if you look in the TV serials, it makes it look like there's no blood. He's just there, he's in a little bit of pain. Actually, if you read Mahabharata, there's a very graphic description given of Bhishmadev's description of Bhishmadev's bed of arrows. How there's not enough space even to put 2 fingers on the body of Bhishmadev without touching an arrow, because that's how many arrows were in his body. And there's all this blood and all of this this bad smell is there, and all of that description is given. And Bhishmadev at this time, he gives, after Yudhishthira, so after Mahabharata was finished, Yudhishthira Maharaj comes along with the Pandavas and Lord Krishna and various others to talk to Bhishmadev and to take instructions on how to rule the kingdom. And so Bhishmadev gives these wonderful instructions. There's 2 parvas of the Mahabharata just dedicated to Bhishmadev's instructions. The Anushasan Parva and the Shanti Parva mainly talk about how one should rule a kingdom, how one should behave in this manner, how one should behave. And he goes through all these principles with Yudhishthira Maharaj. And he teaches Yudhishthira Maharaj all these principles at that point. And in those principles, in those teachings, Bhishmadev also recites this Vishnu Sahasranam. And this Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, is very beautiful. And I was listening to Govind Prabhu's lecture, and he mentions that people always say, if you want to do rituals or if you want to do something auspicious, one should take a bath, one should cleanse themselves properly, and then one should carry out these rituals. That's what we often say. But the names of the Lord are so potent that even with this terrible, gory condition that Bhishmadev was in, he recited the Vishnu Sahasranam. The names of the Lord are so purifying that it does not matter what circumstance they are uttered in, they will always be potent. And so this example is given there in Bhishmadev's condition. Even in that terrible condition, if one touches, even if one passes stool or urine, it is said that they shouldn't do deity worship after that, because that's not clean. You're not clean enough. So all these conditions are there for how clean one should be. The name of the Lord is so potent, it can be uttered at any moment. And again, in Kali Yuga, this is the most important thing. The most important thing is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Kalir no doshani de rajan hastiye ko mahanguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Even though this Kali Yuga is an ocean of misery and faults, there's got this one good quality that simply by properly chanting with love and devotion the name of the Lord, one can become delivered. And so this is an important principle which is also demonstrated by Bhishmadev. The question can be asked, if Yudhishthira Maharaj went with Lord Krishna and the Pandavas to Bhishma, and he has a query about how to run the kingdom, why did Krishna not answer this query? Why did Bhishma answer this? Simply, Krishna could have answered himself. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the source of all knowledge. So why did he ask Bhishmadev? And that is because Lord Krishna wanted to glorify his devotee. Lord Krishna wanted to glorify his devotee and give his devotee the credit. So this is the reason why Bhishmadev is giving these instructions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Nimitta matram bhavatavya sachin. It's Arjun. Actually, I have defeated all of these warriors ahead that you see right now. All of these warriors have been killed by me. But you will act as an instrument. So Arjun takes the credit in that case, because the Lord wants his devotee. He wants his devotee to be glorified. This is the beautiful quality of the characteristic of the Lord, that he wants his devotee to be glorified. And so, in this passing away of Bhishmadev, there is these instructions that he gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj, detailed instructions on how one should run a kingdom, how one should see society, and he goes through all of these very long, there's a massive set, 2 parvas out of 18 parvas in the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is 100,000 verses, and 2 whole sections out of those 18 sections are dedicated to just Bhishmadev's instructions. So that's how extensive these instructions are, just to put into a comparison. And so this is the importance that when you see the passing away of Bhishmadev, it's so beautiful. Because not only, okay, he gives these instructions to the Yudhishthira Maharaj, but when someone passes away, when a devotee passes away, they often think that I should remember the Lord at the time of my passing. Bhishmadev is such a great devotee that the Lord himself came while he was passing away. The Lord himself appeared before him. The Lord himself was there, and Bhishmadev passed away. The beautiful description is given in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavatam. Bhishmadev passes away with the Lord while he's looking at the Lord. While looking at the Lord. So although it might look like, yes, he was not victorious in battle, he had a very glorious departure. And if you read those verses in Bhagavatam, you'll just see how sweet and how nectarian the passing away of Bhishmadev is. And this is also it's very beautiful to listen to and very beautiful to read. And so that's the some lessons that we can learn from the passing away and the life of Bhishma. And I'd like to focus on one specific pastime now, because it's a very beautiful pastime. It's very interesting, and it's quite gives us an insight into the way the Lord treats his devotee. You'll understand what I mean after I explain it. So, in the Mahabharata, the war is happening. So to set the scene, the war is happening. The Pandavas and Kauravas are losing soldiers in massive numbers in the first few days. But Duryodhana thinks, Bhishma, his grandfather Bhishma, he's a little bit biased to the Pandavas. I feel that he's not working hard enough, And he says this to Bhishma, I think you're not doing your best. I think there's still a little bit inside you that loves the Pandavas and you don't want to fight your best. Because I've seen that you are at one point, you're the greatest archer, you're the greatest Kshatriya on the planet. You were trained by Lord Parshuram himself. So I don't think you're actually putting in your best effort into this war. And so Bhishma says, okay, I'll prove to you that I'm actually genuinely fighting and I'm not just being biased to the Pandavas. Here are 5 arrows. With these 5 arrows, I will kill the Pandavas tomorrow. The 5 arrows, I will kill the 5 Pandavas. Take these 5 arrows and keep them with you. Give me them tomorrow, and I will kill the Pandavas with them. This is my promise. I promise you this. Okay? And so, Duryodhana takes these 5 arrows and he's very happy. He thinks, okay, finally, I now have Bhishma on my side. Finally, this war will finish and I will get the kingdom and I won't have any competition. And he becomes very happy. And he takes these 5 arrows. And then Krishna asks Arjuna to disguise himself? No, he doesn't disguise himself. Krishna asks Arjuna to simply go to Duryodhana. And so, although it might seem strange to hear, what would happen is that during the day, from sunrise to sunset, the war would happen. They would be enemies, they would fight each other constantly. But after sunset, war finish, and they are friends. And they would eat together, and they would talk to each other as friends. And you hear of this in Jarasan's, the killing of Jarasandha by Bhima. There is also this mention that they fight in the day, but at night they eat together, they talk together, they joke together. So at night, after the war has finished, Arjuna goes on the order of Krishna and asks Duryodhana, those 5 arrows that you have, can you give me those 5 arrows? And Duryodhana, because he's happy and he's in a jovial mood, he doesn't think much of it. He just simply hands over the 5 arrows. Because he's not overthinking anything or thinking, what's Arjuna doing in that situation?
There was a little incident that Duryodhana promised that he would, give him a boon, because Arjuna saved Duryodhana once in the forest when there was a war between Chitraratha. So that time, Duryodhana promised that he would give something in return, but Arjuna did not ask at that time. So Krishna sent Arjuna now to fulfill that boon that is given by Duryodhana.
And so Arjuna asks for these 5 arrows, and Duryodhana gives them those 5 arrows. And then the next day, Bhishma says, okay, where's those 5 arrows? I want to kill the Pandavas today. Give me those 5 arrows. And Duryodhana says, I don't have them anymore. Arjun took them from me last night. I don't have these 5 arrows. And Bhishma becomes enraged, and he starts fighting so ferociously. And Lord Krishna, it said that Lord Krishna becomes slightly worried. What if he actually does kill the Pandavas today? I can't let this happen. And so it's described at one point that Krishna as Arjun is fighting Bhishma, they encounter each other. Bhishma shoots an arrow so close to Arjun's head, but Krishna pushes his foot into the earth and moves the chariot lower so that it misses Arjun's head and hits off his crown. And this is just how dangerous Bhishmadev was that day, how ferociously he's fighting. And so Krishna thinks, whatever I do, I need to stop Bhishma today. I have to stop this, because he's actually going to kill the Pandavas if he carries on like this. And so he jumps off the chariot, and he goes to another chariot, and he picks up the wheel of that chariot, a broken chariot, and he starts running towards Bhishmadev with like a lion, like a tiger. He starts running towards Bhishmadev, and he says, I'm not going to let you live. I'm going to kill you right now. He's running. And Bhishma, this time, he drops all his weapons and he says, my dear Lord, if you want, feel free to kill me. Please don't hesitate in killing me. And Arjun, he goes behind Lord Krishna and he grabs him by the legs and he's trying to stop him. And it said that he's actually pulled quite far by Lord Krishna. He's unable to stop him. And he's dragged across the ground. And he's just saying, my dear Lord, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't fight like this. You're taking a promise that you won't pick up any weapon. So how can you now, you're going against your promise if you do like this. And so, did I mention? I didn't mention one of the most important points of the story. After Bhishmadev can't kill with the 5 arrows, he takes a promise that I will make Lord Krishna break his promise, because Krishna's promise is I will not pick up any weapons during this war. So in this way, Bhishmadev forces Krishna to break his own promise. And so Krishna becomes pacified, and he doesn't attack Bhishmadev, and he stops. And because of this beautiful incident, he's given the name